Morioni. Mr. Balfants.
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Presente.
Ms. Seeliger.
Here.
Ms. Vendel.
Here.
Ms. Clater.
Here.
Ms. Farah. And Ms. Yuri.
Here.
And Chair Terraro.
Here, and I will note that Ms. Davis did join us earlier this evening for 2 workshops that preceded the meeting. However, she had a back injury this weekend and could not sit through the whole meeting, so she apologizes for missing the meeting. And Ms. Morioni also let the board know in an email earlier last week that she is on a trip to Brazil this month. She's had an opportunity to go back and revisit with some families who she visited her senior year of high school in Brazil, so we're excited for her to enjoy that trip. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the report of the chair this evening, I wanted to welcome everybody back from the holidays. I hope everyone enjoyed their break and had some time with friends and family, and wishing everyone a happy new year. I also wanted to let the board know that we have put online a building committee community application. This is something we had talked about with the proposal that we passed last meeting to establish the building committee. We're now going to need to make appointments to that committee, and so members of the public who are wishing to serve on that committee should go to the website and fill out this application. And board members, if you can spread that far and wide, that would be helpful. I have made student representative committee assignments. I wanted to announce what those are. Tiana Yuri will be serving on the Policy and Legislative Affairs Committee. Saharla Farah will serve on Operations, and Isabel Clater will serve on Curriculum this year. Also, for the board, I just wanted to remind you that you did receive an email from Janet DeBias earlier today with the agenda planning meeting schedule for the year. So if you could be sure to put those dates in your calendar. Those are the dates that you'll be attending the weekly agenda setting meetings. And if you cannot make one for any reason and you'd like to switch out with another board member, please do so. Reach out to the other board member for rescheduling. And that concludes my report. Moving into report of the students, we have Isabel Clater for Portland High School.
Good evening and Happy New Year. My name is Isabel Clater and I'm the student representative from Portland High School. Portland has been really busy these past couple of weeks. After Thanksgiving, we were the site of a naturalization ceremony which all 11th grade students attended. The auditorium was packed and it was a really powerful event that we were very honored to have hosted. Before holiday break, our band and choral students performed in a concert and caroled throughout the school in the hallways the day before we left for holiday break. Just last night, the Portland Deering girls hockey team stunned Cheverus to win in an overtime in a thrilling City Cup game. I don't think anybody expected it, and it was a really, really fun game to watch. Sophomores and juniors had an assembly recently to discuss their PSAT scores, and guidance counselors are beginning to talk with juniors about the college application process. Looking forward, Portland is holding our 8th grade open house on Wednesday, January 10th. We encourage all 8th grade families to attend. The musical theater students are performing the Monty Python adaptation, Spam-A-Lot, on January 13th and 14th. Midterms are the following week, and students are beginning to prepare for the end of the semester. Finally, I would like to thank 2 outstanding groups in the PHS community. Firstly, Student Council recently had a fundraiser to support their scholarship fund. The group will award at least one senior with a $100 scholarship at the end of the school year. Secondly, the Coat Angels, a group of Portland parents and community members, donated over $1,000 to the school in the past month to be used to purchase coats and other winter gear for students. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glader. Report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also like to wish all of the board members, our staff, students, and parents a happy 2018. Obviously, we're off to a cold start for the year, and it looks like winter is here to stay. I'm very proud of our transportation and facilities staff who worked really hard over the holiday break, over the past weekend as well, to make sure that we were ready to open school this morning, and obviously to Assistant Superintendent Crocker for all of the work that she does to make sure that we make the right call every time that we have to make a call. I would also like to welcome Anna Rakowski-Power as the new board representative from Paths. Anna couldn't be with us here tonight, but she will be at the next board meeting. Anna's a junior at Casco Bay and a talented student in the music program at Paths. And so I'm really glad that we will now have a full team of student reps and look forward to working with Anna over this coming year. I want to remind parents of middle school students that this is the time of year when Portland middle school students decide which high school they would like to attend. Our district is the only district in Maine that offers students the opportunity to choose the high school that they would like to attend. All three of our high schools have excellent programs and opportunities, and all three also have unique features. To help families in this process, Portland High School will hold its annual 8th grade open house on Wednesday, January 10th from 6:30 to 8:30. Deering High School will hold its annual 8th grade open house on Tuesday, January 16th from 6 to 8 p.m. Casco Bay held its open house in December, and you may remember that we also hosted a district-wide 3-school information session in early December. I encourage all families to learn about our 3 high schools and make an informed decision. In November, Presumpscot Elementary School was named by the National School Network EL Education as one of 6 schools nationwide to receive the EL Education credential. This is a recognition of achieving the organization's standards in 3 areas: character, quality work, and mastery of knowledge and skills. Presumpscot has been working towards this credential for the past 8 years and becomes the 3rd Portland high school, along with Casco Bay High and King Middle School, to receive this recognition. Presumpscot will be holding a celebration of this recognition this Thursday, and Board Chair Trevorrow and I will be there to recognize their achievement on behalf of the board, and I know that all of the board members are invited and welcome there as well. Over the past few meetings, I've been updating you on the regionalization process. As you know already, we, along with South Portland and Westbrook, filed a Phase 1 application. We were approved by DOE to proceed to Phase 2, which we continue to explore. We were also encouraged by DOE to extend our partnership to other districts that have similar approaches. I've been in contact with the leadership of the Southern Maine Regional Service Center, which involves 12 districts in York and Cumberland County, around procurement of food and facilities, commodities, and supplies. We are pursuing joining that collaborative, which we estimate could save between $100,000 and $175,000 a year. I've been invited to attend their next meeting at the end of January to learn more about their partnership, and I will keep you posted. So finally, our agenda today includes a first read for a revised proposal for our Buildings for the Future governance that we've been discussing for the past 2 meetings. At the December 19th meeting, you approved the part of the governance plan dealing with the overall Advisory Building Committee. At that time, you requested that I bring forward an alternative proposal for the building level advisory committees. The purpose of the building level advisory committee is to create a body of advisors to the larger building committee who are deeply connected to the school. The work of the advisory committee is to advise on school-specific construction issues such as traffic flow around the building, location of key features, color selection, art features, things like that. Additionally, it's expected that these individuals will be ideally placed to communicate to larger constituencies about the progress and details of the project. For example, we want to make sure that they have ample staff representation and PTO membership representation. Because they will be the end users of the decisions, the priority for membership is to include staff and parents along with elected officials who are elected from that school's attendance area. And it should be noted that the ultimate decision-making, as you already know, rests with the board, and that these advisory committees will provide feedback and suggestions on these issues to the building committee. After listening carefully to your discussion at the last meeting, staff worked on an alternative proposal that clarifies the role of the committee and its leadership and expands its membership. I look forward to discussing it with you at the meeting on the 16th, but in between now and then, please don't hesitate to contact me with questions that you may have. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Thompson.
I have a question on the superintendent's report.
Okay.
Looking on the district website, I'm just wondering where you could tell people where the application is
Yeah.
and how we're going to publicize that, because it's not front and center on our
Yeah.
website, or I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure that it was posted. That's why I scooted over there to make sure that it actually had been posted, and it is. It just got put up there. It is in the department's facilities, buildings for our future. So that's the place to go find it. We will also post it prominently as the sort of lead-in thing on the webpage now that we know that it's actually posted, and we will also publicize it in our social media accounts. And obviously, as Madam Chair said, you know, urge everybody else to sort of promote it with people that you know, so.
I'm just concerned, when is the deadline?
We obviously need to move that deadline
Okay, because
up,
it currently
so-
says January 5th.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I wasn't even sure that it was posted. I had sent it last week, and I hadn't followed up to
Okay.
see it. It looks differently because I own it when I go to see it, and so I wasn't sure that it was actually in a form that could be used. Was it usable? Were you able to complete? Okay, yeah.
So I guess I would just ask, can we, for public engagement, especially where this has been a big to-do for the last 12 years, and now we have the referendum and so on and so forth, that we need to give it prominence on the front of the webpage, like you said, also publicize it, but can you get out to the board and to the public what the schedule will be now? Because obviously we want
Push
many
it.
people to apply.
Yeah, I mean, I would push it a week to the 12th so that we have, you know, the full, all of this week and next week to do it. So that's what I would suggest. And we'll actually change that on and make that visible to the public as well.
Okay. Moving into report of the secretary. Consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of December 19th, 2017. Is there a motion? Ms. Seeliger, seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Are there any questions on the meeting minutes? Seeing none. Is there any public comment on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, I would call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes of December 19th, 2017, please indicate. All those opposed? Seeing none, it's unanimous with the students voting in the affirmative. And we don't have a report of committees tonight. In old business, we have a first read to create an advisory building committee as a standing board committee consistent with the superintendent's recommendations. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped consent items. Going back to consent items, would the superintendent please read the items into consent?
Gladly. East End Community School received 21 gift certificates for their walking school bus leaders from Hilltop Coffee Shop of Portland. Cliff Island Elementary School received flutes from Roger Burrell of Falmouth and Steve Little of Cliff Island. Riverton Elementary School received a donation to pay for a field trip to the Scarborough Marsh in May of 2018 for their entire second grade class from Target Field Trips of St. Paul, Minnesota. Riverton Elementary School also received 4 new sleds for recess from Bridget Tidd and family of Portland. Reiki Elementary School received a donation toward their food drive for the food pantry from Wenna of Portland. Reike Elementary School also received snacks for their classrooms from Maine Health of Portland. Lincoln Middle School received a donation to the music department from Keith and Julie Cunningham of Portland. Lincoln Middle School also received a donation to be used towards the Ripple Effect program from the Benevity Community Impact Fund of Safety Harbor, Maine. And Ocean Avenue Elementary School received the following donations. A donation to be used towards healthy snacks and books from Michelle Brooks of Americold Logistics of Portland, coats, hats, and scarves from Nancy Griffiths of Irvington, New York, school supplies from SimQuest of Westbrook, clothing for the clothing closet from Myrna Caminiti of Biddeford, a cash donation to pay off outstanding hot lunch accounts from Dr. Horitz of Portland, book fair donation from Dr. Will Burrow of Gray, and cash donations to allow students who do not have funds to purchase books at the Scholastic Book Fair from an anonymous donor. And we thank all of those generous donors for their support.
Thank you. And now into old business. First read to create an advisory building committee as a standing board committee consistent with the superintendent's recommendations. And where that is a first read, we do not have any discussion. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you. So like Anna brought up when we were getting our Robert's Rules workshop, the name of the motion is exactly what it was for last week's or last meeting's motions. So Sarah and I were just discussing, should we amend it so that this motion reflects what it really is? Because we will not be putting in place a standing board committee. What we're looking to do is put in place temporary advisory committees. So I think the name of the motion is not accurate. Can we just figure out what the right, how do we go about that motion?
Right. So we can look into that and make sure we have it properly for the next meeting. I'm not sure what the answer is to that, but the concern, we understand that this is simply the temporary advisory committees that we're talking about, not the full building committee.
Good.
And there is no new business this evening, and there is no personnel this evening. Moving on to board focus on educational issues, we have district athletics. Would the superintendent like to introduce this item?
Gladly, Madam Chair. Tonight, we're proud to present on the work that is happening in the district around our co-curricular programming. As you know, co-curricular programs are our athletic programs and many of the other student activities that happen before or after school. These activities are coordinated at each school by our co-curricular directors and are overseen at the district level by Assistant Superintendent Crocker. These folks understand the tremendous importance of these activities to providing a well-rounded education, and they're part of our whole student focus. Today, they will be sharing some of this work. A couple of context pieces for this presentation. At the board's request, we're also featuring how our programming has evolved since the last time the board took a deep look at it in 2010 as part of the Red and Blue Foundation's evaluation of our athletics programming. Our focus here is on two key data points. One is the equity of our programming. To that end, the directors will talk about both the progress and the challenges involved in making sure that all of our students can access our programming. Removing barriers to equitable participation and achievement is one of our Portland Promise goals, so this is an area that needs to be understood well. The other key context piece is funding. To that end, you will see a comparison of expenditures for programming since the Red and Blue report. Actually, let me correct that. That is not actually a part of their presentation. It is in the appendices of the presentation materials that you have, and you also have larger print-out copies of the slides that show you how those investments have changed changed since 2010. So when we get to the question and answer portion of the agenda today, I'll be carrying the load around those types of issues and, not asking our co-curricular directors to address those issues particular. But I know that this, as you know, originated as a budget conversation, and so we thought this would be a good opportunity to not only talk about the programming and how it supports the Portland Promise, but also be able to look at the finance issues and how those have evolved over time. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to our crack team here, Mel Craig and Rob O'Leary of Deering and PHS, and Duke Manson, Phil Duras, and Lee Freeman, the middle school co-curricular directors. So, folks, thank you so much for your hard work in getting this ready, and I know that you're anxious to present, so we're looking forward to it. And we're not leaving, we're just getting out of the way.
Okay, well, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak before you on a subject that we are all clearly very passionate about, as well as you folks sitting there. I will say that we're very proud that we are fairly certain this is the first time in Portland Public Schools history that your whole team of athletic co-curricular administrators are together to make a presentation together as a team. Please know that just because Phil and I are the ones up doing the actual speaking points, we are just a small cog in a bigger wheel of a tremendous team, and that does include you folks as our Board of Education. Just some quick intros in case you're not familiar with our staff. Rob O'Leary is our Portland High School Athletic Co-Curricular Director. He's been with us for 3 years. My name is Melanie Craig. I'm the Athletic Co-Curricular Director over at Ram Nation. I'm on year 7. Now we get into the guys. Phil Lyman Moore, Portland Public Schools, 17 years. Duke King Middle School, 18 years. And with tremendous pride and probably a little goosebump, Lee Freeman, Lincoln Middle School, Portland Public Schools, 43 years. So we are your Portland Public Schools athletic co-curricular team. This is the philosophy statement that we have in the handbook. It's what we've operated on for years, kind of a quick summary of what we do. But we'll share with you that the next slide is our most important slide in this whole presentation. Phil and I are actually going to share this one. I'm going to be honest, when we all had to sit down and kind of come up with a presentation and summarize what do you do, put it into a 20-minute presentation, that was a little daunting for us. And then we started to sit down and brainstorm. We said, well, you know what? As we started talking through it, we had Jeannie and Javier help walk us through, our principals. Guys, it's what you do every day. Take what you do and just talk about what you do every day. And as we got a little more comfortable with it, we realized this really is exactly what we do every day. When we talk about achievement, we know that we are an extension of the classroom. We're not in addition to it. We're not support of it. We're an extension of it. We pride ourselves on being an education, athletic, co-curricular-based program. Our promise is why we're all here, and we're very blessed to play a small role in that. It was pretty daunting to create a presentation, but as we started plugging in the Portland Promise, the whole student, well, that's exactly why we chose to do what we do. It's an extension to the academics piece. This is the time where they're trying to figure out, middle school and high school, what is it, who are they, what are they doing, where do I fit in this world? It's our job to provide that opportunity. It's our job to provide maximum opportunities. We want to develop our whole student, academic, health, well-being, spirit, mental. So again, it just comes back to everything that's fundamentally part of what we do.
As far as equity, we look at what we do in co-curriculars as...
That was being recorded, so you can talk to my...
I'm sorry. I'm used to my voice being loud enough for everything. We look at co-curricular activities as an opportunity for everybody to participate. We try to eliminate as many barriers, and we try to offer as many things for all students, whether it's athletics, whether it's in the arts, whether it's clubs, student government. We're trying to give them as many different opportunities to jump in at their point and what their interests are. So equity is very important to us. And then the people, as the people that hire the staff that work with these students, we really focus on hiring talented individuals who know the age group they're working with. We have middle school students, and which is a whole different breed for a lot of people. And we look for people that work with middle school students to work with them because they know them. We have high school students, a whole different type of programming. And the people that come into there bring that level up. So we look for those talented people that know the age level and the groups that they're working with. But also, we look for people that don't just want to focus on the activity, the athletic activity, the club, the art that they're focused on, that they're tasked in doing. We want people that work to kind of bridge the gap between the academics and their activity, to really give them that caring individual that really wants to, that has contact and advocates for them both in the classroom, at home, and in their activity. So as Mel had pointed out, when we started looking at our tasks today, and we looked at the Portland Promise, and we looked at that graph in the Portland Promise with the achievement, equity, whole student, and people, it's what we do. It's what we do every day for co-curriculars. That's how we attack it, how we really want to promote our programs.
Well, and thank you for bearing with us, because we know that we're preaching to the choir. But why are co-curriculars important? Why do they matter? Well, the data's out there. We know that we need to provide a safe, supportive environment for students to try. They need to try and they need to fail. By going through this process, they become better adults. More successful adults come out after high school graduation, and when you look back, they've been your student athletes. They were involved in debate. They were involved in chess club. They were part of the band program. We know you have higher GPAs. We go back to the whole person exploration of who I am and who I want to be. And we've got to work to make sure that we're providing that safe place for our students. So what does that make the role of the co-curricular team? Well, it's everything that we're partnering with on the Portland Promise. We need to make sure that every child has a connection to a caring adult. That's going to come in a variety of forms. That could be the teacher, it could be the administrator, it could be the school nurse, it could be the coach. You've got to make sure that every one of these students feels connected. So we've got to maximize those opportunities, put those caring adults that Phil talked about in those places to excel. We have got to remove barriers. We live in challenging times, and it's our job to make sure that we consistently identify the barrier. Sometimes that can be some of our biggest challenges, identifying what the barrier is, and then it's working together as a team to say, okay, how are we going to take that barrier away? We want all of our kids participating. Phil and I were laughing about this, so what's your goal? Our goal is we want every student participating in one activity. And then when we have that, we want them in 2 activities. And then we have that one with 3 activities. So, you know, it's really pretty simple when we talk about what we do and why we do it. We're in challenging times and competing resources. We have got to maximize our community partnerships. We've got to build foundations and relationships that we can squeeze and make every penny go as far as it can for these kids. We have got to make sure that we are accessing all the resources. If it's a resource we don't have, we need to go find it. We say that to our kids. If there's an activity that we don't offer and it's something you're interested in, bring it to us. We'll create it. So it's similar with the resources as well. Now we kind of get into the data piece. This is really just a quick snapshot, but as we started talking about how the breakdown works, we went through the participation data. This was one of the things that the Red and Blue Foundation did back in 2010. So this is kind of your updated one. Obviously, we could talk about the pieces to this for quite a while, but I think what you'll see as we go on onto the next slide is, to me, the number that speaks is that participation gap. When you look at the 2010 Red and Blue report, we had a participation gap of 21%. Now, we took a 3-year average, we're down to 13%. So that's progress. Are we done? Absolutely not. Still have room to grow, but we're excited and we celebrate the fact that we are closing that participation gap. We are identifying barriers, we are removing them as best we can, and we are making sure that equity is a main focus for our students. They feel safe and supported and know that we're here for them. We're able to implement many of the Red and Blue recommendations from 2010. I really had to go back and kind of process and say and identify which ones. It's been a great journey. We have a new booster structure. We have a more organizational leadership chart. Title IX. We have increased our offerings. We have higher academic expectations. The list truly goes on and on and on. That could be a whole nother presentation on that. But I think what we're seeing is by implementing those things, addressing those issues, we are seeing that participation gap close, and we are very proud of that.
This next slide, the next slide shows the middle school participation. And there's something, we were not included in the Red-Blue report in 2010. So this is information that we're going to be utilizing to try to see as a baseline for the next few years so we can see where we're moving. But I wanted to highlight something that really struck me on here. I went and looked at, as of October 1st, the 3 middle schools had an enrollment of 1,489 students total at the 3 middle schools. When we did this 3-year average of roster positions filled, this is just athletics, there are 1,554 roster positions filled, averaging each year, with a population at the middle school of 1,489. So we have students doing multiple activities and a lot of participation, really high rates of participation. Again, this number would jump if we included all the drama production pieces that we did not put into this data, because this was just strictly the athletic data. Student council, student government, the clubs we have, math teams, all of those would jump this number up. So the participation rate it struck me as wow, this is pretty impressive for our middle schools. I knew it was there. I do this for more each year. I look at the numbers at the end of the year and try to see, how many students are participating each year, and it always floors me at the end of the year when I make that presentation to our parents that are in the last assembly of the year. This data, our participation gap is 16% from the 3-year average to the overall representation. As I said, this is our baseline now for our middle schools. We're going to continue to come back to this at the end of each year to see where we're going. We have addressed the barriers. We've addressed several barriers, and we're trying to improve to make sure that the representation and the opportunity is out there for all students. As for each of the schools, we have, at the high school level, there are 28 varsity athletic programs, 59 athletic teams, over 35 co-curricular programs, very consistent between the two schools. They have developed cooperative programs for ice hockey, Nordic ski. At the middle schools, we're looking at 38 athletic and co-curricular teams. These include drama, student government, the math teams. They're very consistent between the schools, so whichever school these students call home, because we have a lot of transition between King, Lincoln, and Moore, they have the same opportunities to participate at each of these schools. We also do have cooperative programs. We have an all-city middle school swim team Our lacrosse program is all city. The Nordic ski program is all city. Our wrestling program is all city. So it's one Portland Middle School team. And this year, and did you start last year with last year, King and Lincoln have combined as a cooperative field hockey program. So when needed, we do try to consolidate our programming to address all the students and to keep programming going. As far as our successes and achievements. So when we wrote these out, we kind of wrote them out as high school and middle school. Some of the high school pieces that came out: increased athletic offering, community partnerships, the completion of the Title IX review and the work towards that, academic support blocks, high expectation, academic eligibility, the pride and tradition piece. Then we started looking at what we wrote down for middle school, and we saw instead of these individual, the overall piece we're very similar with. At the middle schools, we talked about high participation. High school, it goes the same. There's high participation. Opportunities for all students to be participated and learn the skills and knowledge so they can move on. At the middle school, our goal is to always get them ready for high school. At high school, they want to increase their knowledge and interest and skills in these co-curricular activities so they can pursue them either at the college level or just personally on their own after they leave high school. We all work to get caring adults and advisors into positions to work with these students and to advocate for them both in and out of school. The whole development of community spirit, of providing an atmosphere of belonging goes through middle school and high school in our co-curriculars. I mean, that was one of the things we talked about today when we were meeting, is the students that participate in co-curricular really, they generate that sense of belonging for their school, their pride in their school. And we encourage all students to get that experience. And they also, by doing that, it comes to the next piece, they come together. They meet students that they don't normally maybe hang out with. So it gives them an opportunity to bring the groups of students together and to build those friendships. And again, providing the essential skills. One of the things that when I came here I came up from Connecticut in 2001, one of the things I see that's very different from when I came up here is the Portland Public Schools, that identity now. The high schools are so much closer. They've unified so much more. The middle schools have unified so much more. And I really think that co-curriculars has a lot to do with that. There's other programs going on, but I see through co-curriculars when Lincoln and King come over to Moore and they play an activity together, they stand and hang out together for a while afterwards, when Deering and Portland do. I mean, when I came in 2001, I didn't see that as much. And we're really focusing on trying to build those connections between all of our programs, because we've got such a beautiful, diverse group of students. And to really foster that through co-curriculars is extremely important to us.
Okay, so Phil got all the celebrating, which was great, because there is truly a lot of that. And I gotta say, it was a nice task to have to sit down. You don't think about it. I'll be honest, you kind of get caught up in the daily grind, and you're doing what you're doing, and you get into that next level, that next game, or whatever's going on. You know, and probably for me as a reflection, we need to take more time to sit back and celebrate that and say, you know what, for all the days that challenge you, there's those days that are absolutely amazing, and we are doing some great things. So it was great to sit down in this task and be able to start talking and go, yeah, you know, we're doing some really great things. We have awesome kids. But it's no secret. There still remain some challenges and barriers. Some of them are cultural, some are systemic. Some of the things that we have to battle, and this is it's not a knock on anyone, it's just the challenges. Fiscal responsibility. We all battle that way, whether you're sitting as a Board of Education, a superintendent, or an athletic director. We're in competing resources. Prices for things are going up, and we have to be fiscally responsible. We be able to maximize our resources. We're very unique. We're very proud of the plethora of athletic fields that are available in our city of Portland. We have some great facilities. There's a lot of restrictions that come with that as well. And as we change our school day and as we move our times, that becomes a challenge for us to have to work through collaboratively to make sure that we're providing for kids. Transportation is a piece of that for our students. I think for the most part, the Metro is working very well for our student athletes, but there's still holes, there's still gaps. There are times where the Metro bus line doesn't match up with the practice time. Well, that practice time was assigned by the facility because this is when it's available. Sadly, because of limited times, there's times our basketball teams are getting out at 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. There is no Metro running at that time. So again, while we're celebrating and making progress, I still think there are challenges that's some of our participation challenges. I think high school as well as middle school. If they can't leave and come back for a late practice, if they don't have that transportation. So ongoing things we're always trying to problem solve as a team. Again, financial constraints, we're doing more with less. I think overall, you'd be very proud to see that our lines, we've been very fiscally, we are maximizing and resources, and we're pushing out as much as we can. You haven't seen a lot of jumps in the lines that we control. Supply lines aren't through the roof. We're all on uniform rotations. We partner in, is there bulk buying with vendors? Can Rob and I pair up with one vendor and get the biggest bang for our buck? The five of us spend quite a lot of time doing that. But we are competing for resources. Boosters are out doing a tremendous job. We've gotten better. We don't have to nickel and dime. And the community is proud that Portland Public Schools does commit to the basics and the requirements. They're not out fundraising for uniforms. Other communities are out fundraising for basics. Our community is not. We've been able to balance that, and that's a source of pride, and it's something that we hear the community talk about. Hopefully they're letting you hear that too. Some of what we deal with is cultural. It's a demographic change. Things are very different now for me even in just 7 years. And we constantly have to be on our game. We have to respond to that. There's socioeconomical differences in our kids. I think our community has a tremendous understanding and pride in the importance of education, but we have to do a better job of also pairing that with what's the importance of co-curricular and athletics. I want to see more parents out at these events supporting their kids. I want kids to feel comfortable coming out and trying it. How do we get those new, more and more, a higher percentage, more and more students, and I think this is probably more middle school than high school, it's a higher percentage of students coming in that they didn't grow up in an organized sport environment. 20 years ago, we all did organized sports. That's what we did. You went through Little League, you went through Little That's not what these guys have for student population. We have more and more. So how do you reach out to them, and how do you say, hey, come give this a try, this is what it looks like? And with that, here come the expectations that there is a time schedule. Practice does start at this time. It does end at this time. And this is kind of the cultural of co-curricular and athletics. So that's a big piece that we work on the educating. It's time and commitment and parent engagement. We want our co-curriculars to be not the center of the hearts of our school, but it's a source of pride. It's what your communities, that's what they're looking at each other at. They're like, what is your sport team doing, or your drama team? We want our families to be proud of the fact that they chose Portland Public Schools. So attached this is the end of the slide presentation, but attached is a plethora of information and data for you to look over. It's very hard to summarize this all in 20 minutes and 47 seconds. And it's very hard to take what we do as a passion and kind of buckle it down and put on the professional suit and come before you and say thank you, first of all, because you do support what we do every day and you do support the kids. I'll be honest, times are very different. And there are absolutely, I won't lie, there are times I look back and go, boy, wouldn't it be great if I was an athletic director back in the day? Do I have a game ball? Do I have 2 teams? Do I have officials? Excellent, let's play ball. That's just not what we do these days. Our student population deserves so much more from us than just here's a ball, let's go play. They deserve to know that we are knocking down those equity barriers, that we are ensuring that they're safe and supported, and that we are providing an opportunity for every one of them. We live in challenging times, and I think sometimes the city of Portland and Portland Public Schools, we're kind of a micro-organism within that. And let's be honest, there's people that want to see us fail. There's people that want to say this doesn't work. So when we succeed big. But it's an added challenge, it's added pressure for all of us. I don't know about you, but we embrace that challenge. Put it in a sport term, bring it. We have great kids, we have a great community, and we're very proud to be serving the students of Portland Public Schools. Thank you.
So first of all, thank you so much, you guys. You did a tremendous amount of work preparing for this. I'm incredibly proud of the teamwork. It's always interesting, to say the least, to think that, you know, you represent different schools that are sometimes at odds with each other on the field, not in reality, but on the field. And so it's hard to sort of divorce yourself from that, and you clearly did that for this presentation. So I'm incredibly grateful to you. I'm incredibly grateful to Jeannie, because this is the hallmark of the work that Jeannie has done in this district for the 3 years that she has been, 4 years that she's been in the district, is, you know, to build this spirit of we are one district, and it really shows in this presentation, and so you're to be commended for that. Obviously, there was a tremendous amount of work that went into preparing for this, and we also have in the board packet, you have additional information around the finances, around some of the data program by program, so we're looking forward to your questions and comments.
Ms. Thompson.
I'll echo what the superintendent said. Thank you very much for coming. I do have a bunch of questions. So I don't know, Mel, if you want to come up, since you're the oldie but the goodie when we launch some of this stuff. But could you, and I could certainly talk about it, but we have 2 new board members. Can you tell them what the Red and Blue Foundation report was?
The Red and Blue Foundation was done in 2010. It was the year before I came on board, and it really was an incredible, if you haven't had a chance to flip through it, comprehensive look of everything we do, athletics and co-curricular. They came through and did a budgetary breakdown. They broke down what we were doing well, and then they broke down and said, hey, here's some things, why don't we tackle that? So this is a group that came in, completed 2 packets for us, and we've been able to use that and go back and say, okay, what are we trying? Hey, this works, this is working really well. Well, this really doesn't plug into what we do, but that's okay. And it really was a tremendous template, and I'm so thankful to the board for getting that done, because it really helped get this going. If you haven't had a chance to see it, I know there's copies around. I'm pretty sure it's on the website. So it's great things to take a look at, and we've been able to springboard a lot of the positive celebrations are a springboard from that Blue and White Foundation. Thank
you. I have a few follow-ups. Thank you for that, because I didn't know if they would know what Red and Blue was, so some of us oldies have been here, but can you, at some point, and you don't have to do it now, but can you get us some data as to Casco Bay High School? I assume that the numbers, because they feed into Portland and Deering, can you get us the numbers as to the percentage of students that are coming from Casco Bay, participating in Portland, and percentage participating at Deering? If you could get that to us.
Absolutely.
Also, the growth by Casco, since they started participating and going to one school or the other, if we can see what the growth has been there and/or challenges that we can help address. Having had one that went to Portland and one that went to Casco, I know Casco was a lot more challenging than my daughter from Portland. On the high school opportunities, wrestling is also a cooperative program, is that correct?
Wrestling is a co-op with Portland, and please, Rob, speak up if I don't want to speak for South Portland and Portland.
Okay.
Co-opt. Deering at this time is still able to stand alone. Co-ops are a tricky mix. It's not as easy as Rob and I picking up a phone call and saying, hey, let's be a co-op. There's the MPA that rules all of this together, and there's a lot of factors that come in. So are you a co-op team or individuals?
So this year, Portland and South Portland have co-opted as a team. South Portland didn't have a team. They had 5 wrestlers who needed a home, so Portland gave them that home. We were able to have our own team. However, this just makes us a stronger program.
Right. Yeah, I think that's something to celebrate, too, about regionalization and how we're partnering with our neighbors. So I think that should be a good positive thing that we should celebrate, too, that we are partnering with our neighbors. The busing, you talked about the metro busing, and I know back along, and I don't know where this is at now, there was a bus that would would come to Casco Bay and pick up some of the kids because they're so far out, removed from the fields at Portland and Deering. How is that working now?
It's an ongoing project that we collaborate with transportation. I will take this opportunity to say they are doing an amazing job. But the resources change, and as we change bus routes, one example we found was with swimmers going to practice at Riverton. There was a PPS bus that was available because it was doing a very specific route, but then when that route changed, it didn't have that opportunity to pick up Casco Bay, Portland, or Deering. So we were able to offer it one year, but not able to offer it another year. But that's a challenge, getting our students to those off-site facilities. We have Nordic skiing going out tomorrow. They leave from Riverside. Their bus leaves at 1:30, dismissals at 1:30. Great. Well, the bus leaves from Riverside. That now means our students are dismissed early from academic time because those student athletes need to get themselves cars, ride share, metro, from Portland and Deering to Riverside to leave there. So, we're constantly looking and evaluating, but you're absolutely right. So it's a challenge for all of our student athletes, so.
And I continually hear from some parents, especially those that broadcast, the challenges that they feel we're having with broadcasting our events and our games. Have you heard, what kind of feedback have you heard, and/or do you find that challenging? Because, again, some of those that broadcast, we've had some here talking about funding for our TV3, but also those that broadcast it say that there's not, enough being done. So I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are on the broadcasting of our events and coverage.
The broadcasting of the events is something that we're definitely working on, as far as even trying to live tweet them and trying to get some different ideas from the students, because it's obviously going to cost us money to bring in other companies to do it. The TV3 does do 3 or 4 events, tries to do 3 or 4 events for each team. I know they're doing a wrestling match tomorrow at Portland High. They've done basketball, football, ice hockey, baseball, softball. I think they do the best they can with the resources they have. But if anybody has any ideas that we can get more things broadcasted, that is obviously something that we would definitely be interested in.
Okay.
Sorry, I also think it's a conversation that other schools are having. It's just a matter of trying to keep up with technology. As soon as I learned how to tweet, my students picked a different platform, and I'm like, oh, my thumbs are still tweeting. So, our job is to get the information out, communicate it in as many ways as possible, so that's a variety of ways out there. Many districts are establishing bigger media departments. I think if you looked at Thornton Academy, he's got a staff of about 4 that's all they do, is they work on broadcasting and taking all of that, the web updates. So that would just be a school that I would say, wow, they're kind of up here. Most of us are still trying to figure it out down here. Not enough resources. Channel 3 does a great job, but they need more people to broadcast. They need more equipment. I think we use a variety of platforms, but we are certainly open to using more. We can't get them in if we don't get the word out. So our job is to keep pushing that word out.
I have one last question. Back along, and I don't know if you were here or not, but I know that can't remember, Duke was here at the time, for middle school sports. The board at the time agreed to cut football in the middle school level when we donated our uniforms to Portland Football Youth League. And we were also subsidizing that for the children or the students that were in our system that could not afford but wanted to play football. It's my understanding we're no longer subsidizing that. So what connection do we have anymore to the Portland Football League on the middle school level? And are we joining forces with some of those community groups? We've talked about that over the years, whether it be the soccer or the football. We had them take it on because we were going to support them with that transition and continue to subsidize those kids that couldn't afford to pay the fees to participate with the Portland Football League. So where is that at?
Last year, we did discuss the MOUs that we had with the different outside groups. And I'm going to look to Jeannie as far as where we are with football. I know last year we said we were going to stop it for this season. And we have, yeah. So we had, and we had looked at a couple of different factors when we had talked about that, and that was the number one. It was an entity that wasn't playing under the middle school philosophy at that point. We were struggling with that. The numbers had dropped down so far.
Can you explain that, Bill?
Well,
What was the inconsistency there?
It became a program to win. It was for the gold ball. And so students were dropping out of the program because they weren't being played. The students were not being put on the field. They were going to practices and they weren't being played. So the numbers, we went from a King football team, Lincoln, Moore, 7th and 8th grade teams. At that point, we consolidated to, when I went to Portland Youth Football, consolidated to 2 teams, an 8th grade and a 7th grade team. It's down to 1 to 2 teams now playing for the whole school, the whole district. The numbers keep dropping because of the philosophy piece there of all students should have the opportunity to play and participate.
Do you get the feeling from, we have football on the high school level, and then they were talking about the feeder, where does that, granted I know we don't have a money tree, but it was a program that we were very concerned about when we did cut it, that we needed the feeder program, therefore we were supporting it. Sounds like the logistics, et cetera. Is it time for us to think about bringing potentially football back into our middle schools? And if so, is there something else that would go? Because obviously we can't fund everything, but there seems to be dwindling numbers on the high school level for football because we're no longer feeding it. So I'm just
Well, this is the first year. This is the first year that.
Well, the numbers have been dwindling over the
numbers
last.
have been with our support for the last 5-6 years. With our support financially, providing all that, the numbers were dropping dramatically. Up to, and this is the first year that we did not fund it, and their numbers, I think, stayed the same this year.
So can I just go a little further on that? And you know, we didn't prepare for this, but so the fact that the numbers have been decreasing over the years in spite of the fact that we were supporting the middle school program, but that's the drop in football numbers is not unique to Portland, and it's not unique to places where the middle school program exists in a different format. So can you talk about that? Because I just want to be clear that it's not, you know, it's not, I don't want anybody walking away with the impression that this is, you know, we did A, you know, in 2010, and therefore in 2018, we don't have as many people playing football. So I just want you guys to have an opportunity to talk about that.
Can I just clarify a point? This is my 4th year here, so I was not here when middle school football was played. However, when they dropped middle school football in the area, a lot of the other communities in the area also went to Smithville, which is the Portland Youth Football League. So there is really no league for a middle school football team to play in. So we could have 3 middle school football teams that would play each other, but there's no other teams in the area. They would be traveling quite a distance to play middle school football. just for clarification purposes. But as far as the football numbers in general, it's a problem not just in the state of Maine, it's a problem in the United States. It's something that we talk about at all the conferences we go to. Everybody's looking for ideas. The concussion protocols, things like that have definitely hurt the sport of football. The fact that they've changed sort of Pop Warner and youth football Pop Warner got away from their ideas where it used to play by weight, and they started playing by grade more so it wasn't at a younger age. So kids were when I was growing up, you played football by weight, which may not have been beneficial for me, but it was beneficial for some kids, and I think that at times when things change, people don't realize that change is going to affect us over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, and that is really where football has changed, I think, more so than whether or not we were able to have. I mean, it would be awesome to have a middle school football team, or 3 of them, or 5 of them, however we can get the numbers. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure that the kids in the middle school would play, whether or not. I mean, because it's a problem across the country. It's not just in the state of Maine. Is basically the message, I think.
And I think the only thing I would add to that is when that original agreement went down, there was X amount of money allocated to help support that. As more groups started coming to the table, as you heard us say, if we can't offer it, we're going to go find it. Who's got it? How can we support it? How can we partner? So now you have Back Bay Lacrosse that came in. You had Nordic Skiing. So now you had these competing resources coming in and saying, hey, our kids are important too. You're allocating this chunk of money. Why can't we all kind of share in the... So it really did bring us back to the drawing board. So, okay. Participation is key for all of us. I'll give you an example off of football. Girls basketball. Southern Maine Activities Association, we're Class A, we're Class AA, we're the bigwigs, right? Girls basketball, 17 schools in our conference, 4 have first team basketball. 4. This is the discussion we're having at table, why are they not playing? We're fortunate, knock on wood, Deering and Portland have one. How does Gorham High School not have a freshman girls basketball program? Macaulay, the Maine Girls Academy, has swingers for JV. Their numbers are dwindling. So numbers across the board are dwindling. I think each sport's a little bit unique. Football definitely brings in some challenges. We are not unique. I think if we did a whole separate presentation on participation, what that looks like, you guys would be shocked at these numbers. The TAs of the world with 101 in the program, they're standing alone. They're having their own issue. The TA AD was frustrated with us because he couldn't pick up games. I can't give you a game with a team I don't have, Gary. I'd love to help you out. So you're finding a real split, and you're finding more in that lower number one. So what is it? Why are they not playing? How can we address it? Is it back to flag football? So all conversations we're having. But again, it's equally partnering with all of those community resources to make sure that we're being equitable.
Sorry, just to add to that piece, the football numbers may be down, but the increase in soccer numbers are unbelievable. We've had between 80 and 100 kids trying out for 6 soccer teams between the 2 schools. So that's the kids are playing, they're just choosing a different sport.
Okay, I have Ms. Bendel and then Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a follow-up question that I think you sort of started to answer in relation to your analogy with the Nordic Ski program. And my question is actually more specific in how you as athletic directors, as coaches, are facing, obviously increased competition with the club sports programs. Given, I think, the article that I was listening to on NPR today cited $15 billion is how much parents are paying into private sports programs. And this is great that we've seen an increase in participation. The other component is access for our students in poverty. And so I guess, what are you seeing at the building level in terms of the trends and threats around club sports in Portland?
Go ahead.
I think it's a valid point, and boy, don't I wish I had the answer to that one, because I could be traveling around making tons of money to support our kids. I think the trends that we're seeing is, at the very base of it, the student still wants to wear that jersey that says Deering, that says Bulldog, that says Lincoln. There's still a draw to that. The student athletes aren't giving up. They're being torn. Because now I want you to play this particular sport year-round. So I think the biggest impact we're seeing is I'm not seeing as many three-sport athletes. Okay. We're seeing specialization way too early, and that's some of the feedback we're getting now. And, you know, as Rob alluded to earlier, you're making decisions at the time, you're making the best decision you can at the time, not realizing that 5 and 10 years down the line, here's the impact. And I think that's some of what we're seeing in sports specialization. When we see parents that just want to write the check so that their child is on the elite team, that's the students we're working with still want to wear that Deering jersey. They still want to suit up and go Bulldogs and Rams on a basketball court on a Friday night. But they're torn, and they're exhausted. You know, it can be soccer season, and I'll have a tremendous soccer player who played 6 basketball games over a weekend. They're exhausted, and they're trying to give it their all, and they're just being torn in too many directions. So I think families need to make the best choice they can for their family, but there'll always be a draw for school sports. I don't think we're going to get pushed out. Do we have to compete? We do, absolutely. But, you know, as I said earlier, bring it.
I think that the second piece of your question about the poverty, no child is being left behind by those groups. They're finding ways to help those kids, and we get them reaching out to us all the time and asking, you know, how can we help? What can we do? They're finding a way to make sure that we're all finding a way to make sure that those kids play.
That's great. Mr. Rodriguez.
Actually, before I get into my questions and my comments, I was wondering if any of our student reps, who I know some of them, you know, participate in co-curriculars, if they had anything to add, and then I'll ask my questions.
Student reps. Ms. Yuri.
I just want to commend you guys and also talk about how much I appreciate, we haven't really talked about that much, but the element of co-curriculars and in athletics of having a caring adult in your life, because that's so important. And when I was in middle school, I had such a struggle connecting with people, and I think having a caring adult in my co-curricular really helped me find my own values as a person and on the field and whatever like that. And I think that that's so important. I'm so glad you guys are seeing that as the success that it is, because I know, not just me, but my friends, it's so important. I go to Casco Bay, so I guess one of my questions that's similar to Ms. Thompson's is, I know that it's incredibly difficult to do sports at Casco Bay, just because of transportation and because of lots of other factors. One of my friends does soccer, and she gets to practice about 20, 30 minutes late, which is really tough for her, athletically and socially and sometimes. And I was wondering, if you guys have any opportunities or plans to improve that. And another question I would have is, what are you guys doing specifically to encourage more diversity and multiculturalism on the field? And just specific actions that you're doing, because I know you guys have a hijab program, right? That was pretty recent. So I'd really like to hear about more of those successes and more of the challenges, and I'm really interested in it. So thank you guys.
Yes, I think probably one of the most notable ones is our hijab program. And I'll be honest, that's something that really, I think we take for granted what we do. What's the barrier? Well, our Muslim student athletes couldn't compete. It was a bulky hijab. So I'm well, they're making a new sport. Well, okay. Oh, of course, it's a no-brainer. That's how we operate as a community. It was student-led. It was the student teammates, the ones who don't even wear hijabs, that said, hey, we're going to go out and fundraise this money. So I think sometimes the biggest challenge is identifying, why is that student not playing? What is that barrier, and can we help you take it down? We have a lot of families that have to go home after school to take care of younger siblings. So, that's a legitimate barrier. So how does that work? And honestly, I think for all of us, it's student voice. It's, what are we doing? I have to listen. I have to talk to my students. I have to listen to what they're saying, not what I think has to happen. What are your challenges? We know Casco Bay is a challenge. We're brainstorming all the time. How do we get in? How do we, so maybe it's a sit down with the Casco Bay students to say, that is a challenge. It's not okay for you to get to practice 20 minutes late. So let's identify what that barrier is. We've done some things. There are times I'm able to, depending on bus availability, the bus, and I know Portland does as well, will swing by Casco Bay, pick up those athletes, and then go to the next high school to go to the event. So it's kind of a juggling act, and would love to sit down and say, we need to hear from you guys. What is that barrier? And not just think that we know. I think sometimes adults take on the role of, we think we know and we can fix it. We have to do more listening to our students and take our cues from you guys. But hijabs would be one, but it's hard to sit and we don't really think about it. You want to participate? We're going to figure it out. Like we said, we want every student participating in one, and then when they're all in one, we want two, and we're just going to keep going. So I'd like to see us work together and get some more student voice at Casco Bay. We're not in that building. I think it presents more of a challenge. Well, maybe it's time for us to make sure we set a time once a week to come in and have that conversation and help take down those barriers.
I can also set that up for you.
Excellent. I'll tweet. I'll send you a tweet. There we go.
Yes.
So I think my biggest question, it comes from the gender equity equality issue, where I know we have a lot of participation across the board with girls and boys, but it's more the visibility. So like at the hockey games last night, the girls' game ended. It was a thriller. I was so proud of Portland. And then I heard the announcer say, and now for the main event of the night, referring to the boys' team. And that's not the main event of the night, because both of the teams had incredible games. There was no reason that the boys' game should be any more important than the girls' game. And our own students do it too. We have a group on Facebook for athletics and activities where people will send out a post saying, hey, we have this game, we'd love the support, we'd love if you came out. And there'll be these long paragraphs supporting the boys' teams from the boys, and then a girl will comment or post a one-sentence thing saying, oh, hey, our basketball team has a game too. But they're diminishing themselves. And I mean, it's definitely not their fault. It's this institutionalized kind of issue. But what are we doing to fix that? What are we doing to ensure that girls believe that they are just as important, and that boys understand that they also need to support the girls' teams, that you can't expect a whole crowd to show up for your game if you're not giving back to the fans who are coming to you, if that makes sense.
That's a great point. I didn't hear the announcer say that last night. I probably would have walked over. One of the things that we've tried to do is to flip-flop the boy-girl doubleheaders. Last year, the girls played second in the City Cup. The boys played first. That is something that will happen next year. It'll be our home game. So the girls will play second and the boys will play first. Something that we've done, I believe it was last Tuesday night. No, it was either last Tuesday or Tuesday before. They're all starting to blend together. But the boys and girls both played Massabesic in basketball, and the boys played first and the girls played at 7 o'clock. That is something that actually came out of the Red and Blue Foundation's report, that the Title IX piece is also game times and practices. We do flip-flop practices as best we can with coaches' schedules and work schedules, and One of our coaches is a teacher, so they may be more flexible after school than a person who's working a 9-to-5 job, so sometimes that's a little bit more difficult, but we definitely are paying attention to it. We've been under, Ms. Crocker can correct me, 4 years now of the Title IX quarterly reports. 5? Is it 5? 5 years now of quarterly reports to the OCR, so we are definitely paying attention to it, and it's something that we're working on a daily basis.
I'm going to use a term I don't really like to use, but being a female student athlete had the same issues. I try not to use that term. You're all my student athletes. Male, fit, we don't need a pronoun before it, you're a student athlete. But it is a cultural thing in sports. Is it better? It's better than it was. We're a long way away. So I think, again, I go back to, for us, it's student voice. I'll sit down with my students. Why are you going to the boys' game? You're all hyped about the boys' basketball game. Why don't you come out for the girls' game? So it's coming up with some strategies, but it has to be strategies that work for you guys. What we've done, we have student themes, and I was able to secure some funding and donations for, we actually have a candy that we give away at each game. Tonight's Bonnie Eagle, so it's Butterfingers. We gave away Butterfingers. Just anything to try to, because at the end of the day, I want our students coming in to support our students. One of the things I think I'm most proud of working with this group in my 7-year tenure, we are the only school that I am still aware of that does not charge their students to go to their student-athlete events. We got rid of that 3 years ago. We were able to accomplish that, and that's tremendous. We've seen a much bigger showing of support. Again, what's the barrier? You know what? That $2 to go into a basketball game is a barrier. So take that away. And now it's kind of, you're beefing up the event. How do I make that event exciting? What is it you guys want? And I think some of it is empowerment back to you to go bang on Mr. O'Leary's door. Go bang on my door and say, hey, Ms. Craig, here's how we're going to pump this one up. Let's pick a game. One of the things that Mr. O'Leary and I struggle with, too, is the marquee sports. You know, I don't have to promote basketball. The newspaper does plenty of that for us. What about our swim team that just had an incredible event down at Chevrolet? What about our Nordic skiing going up tomorrow? So I know it's a conscious effort that Mr. O'Leary and I to say, hey, I'm going to promote every one of my sports. To my tennis team, I can't fill a stadium for you. That's not how it works. But what can I do for you so that you know that you're special? And I think that's our source of pride. I think that's some of the feedback I've gotten from Deering students to say, hey, we have to value every one of us. And again, it builds that community. So definitely something we want to keep working on. It's probably a good thing I wasn't there last night and heard that announcer say that, because that probably would not have gone over well. But you're all the main event. So great point.
Can I just make a quick comment on that issue of the promoting the non-marquee sports? I just want to give a shout out to the two principals. Both of you do a tremendous job of tweeting and putting all those events out there, but I'm always just, blown away by all the games and activities that both Sheila and Greg are at and that they're out there promoting. I mean, I do Twitter, so that's the only place. I don't know if anybody else in the world, other than me and, our nation's greatest Twitter. But, I'm just amazed at the fact that you guys are at all those events and are such supporters and boosters of the schools.
Can I just add the assistant principals to that as well? Because they're always willing to help out, too.
Yes, I meant that.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Rodriguez? Ms. Farah?
Hello. Obviously, I don't play sport. I'm constantly reminded of my wasted height, maybe in the next life. Sorry. But like Ms. Craig was talking about, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name completely, but I know Ms. Craig, about the idea of equitable resource for something like co-curricular activities is very important for our students. And I want to talk about the climate at Deering and a lot of conversation goes around sports and like not only the sports, the games, and like how people turn out for them, but how teamwork, like interpersonal relationships work out. And especially with I hear a lot about like our boys team and what they're doing for each other. And even alumni, they keep tweeting about them, or like on Snapchat. Maybe a new thing you want to get on. Maybe. No, you don't need it. But how they almost like train like the younger people to come up and things like that. And that relationship is so motivating for our students. And you can't help but, even if you're not a part of these teams, know how that impacts that student life and things like that. And also, even if you're not a part of a sport, to also recognize things that happen in our band, how there's a new thing where they come out and they play during some blocks at the beginning or ends, just to help. And it feels really nice to just hear a little something, because maybe they don't get this much recognition, but just small things like that, small adjustments, like Ms. Carter was talking about, how to feel special. I feel like that's very important for our student climate and for students to feel good in the things that they're very passionate about and like to do. Like, I get to talk about my thing here on my meetings. So, yeah, thanks for calling me out.
Mr. Rodriguez.
It's my turn. Thank you, Chair. So I had not as many questions as Sarah, but I did have a couple of things I wanted to add. I'm kidding. So I am a newbie, so I wait my turn, So first of all, I wanted to make a point. We were talking about how the numbers for football had gone down, and I don't have the numbers with me, and I don't have statistics, but I know I'm pretty confident saying that for Portland youth football, even though their tackle numbers might have either gone down or not, I know their flag football program is going through the roof. And one of the areas that they've really celebrated, and I've enjoyed because my kid plays, is that they're drawing a lot of girls. They're drawing a lot of female athletes. Last year, I coached, or 2 years ago, I coached an all-girl team in that co-ed league. So it was girls playing against boys, literally. And we had 7 girls we were able to get. The next year, word spread, we got 12 girls in the team, which made it a nightmare to coach because, not because of the substitution, because there's five kids on the field. So then all of a sudden, I've got 7 other kids I got to figure out how to get in and out versus having 7. Anyways, so point being, one of the proudest moments that I had during that season was one of the parents from the other team comes up to me and says, that's the first time I've ever rooted for the team that was playing against my son, because I wanted to see those girls kick butt, because it was so cool. And it goes back to what Isabel was saying. They were the main attraction, and throughout that season, everybody that's involved in it knew that girls team, and they knew that we had the most fun. They knew that they always showed up, and they were amazing. We never won a single game, but those girls had so much fun, and they learned so much, and I as a coach learned so much from them. So anyways, all to say that I really appreciate and I really value what co-curriculars, what athletics does. It builds community. Out of those 12 girls in that team, we had 4 different schools represented. It was 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, so we had elementary and middle schools represented. So it does help to build community. We had a sleepover with all 11 girls slept over at my house. Yeah, I don't even want to get into that, but it was amazing. So again, it goes back to what we were saying. It does build community. I was one of the people that asked to get this information in front of us, and part of the reason was that those leagues that I'm just bragging about so much, they are so white. It's just simple as that. You remember that old hashtag, the Oscar is so white? Well, Portland youth football is so white. It really is. And I had a challenge. My kid is a student of color. We had a couple of students or kids that were people of color in our teams. And I saw the challenges. They weren't showing up to the tryouts. We didn't know how to engage them. So I appreciate when you're saying, I don't know the answer. But I appreciate that we recognize it as, there's something that we want to kind of address. And I hope that it is a conversation that we're all kind of having, and we're constantly on our heads, and we're trying to figure out how do we continue to increase participation, and how do we keep providing opportunities for our female students to participate in that are going to be as glorious as those male student athletes, historically have been. Okay, so now, question. When we start to, and I don't want to use the word consolidate, but when we start to kind of bring teams together, like we did with hockey, and then what we're doing with wrestling, so what primarily, I guess, brings that up? What primarily guides that for happening? Is it the low participation rate? Oh, please, yeah. Please interrupt me, because that one was...
No. Well, the MPA, as far as the high schools are concerned, we play under MPA rules, Maine Principal Association. The first criteria for a co-op that you would read would be that one of the two schools would not have a team. So if, for instance, if Portland... for ice hockey, Daring had lost ice hockey. They hadn't had a team, I believe, for 2 years now. It was 2 years that they hadn't had a team. There's a waiting period, and then you can apply to become a co-op. That is one way. The other way would be to join. So say Daring's team was fading out in ice hockey, and Portland still had a team, they could join, but you can't play in the playoffs, or they would drop you a class. So those are the two types of situations that you'd have to be in. Right now, in ice hockey, the primary school is Portland, although we're grandfathered in. How the co-op would be run going forward would be the school with the larger enrollment would be the host school of any sport. So in this case, it would be Daring High School. If we were to co-op in something, Daring would be the host school, and Portland would be the co-school in the co-op. For wrestling, South Portland didn't have a team, so those 5 kids wouldn't have been allowed. They would not have been allowed to compete. In matches where there's you had to have a certain number. Before it was last year, right, that they changed the co-op rules, the MPA. Before you could add individuals to a team in wrestling, and Nordic ski and alpine ski, you could add an individual to a team, and it was called an individual co-op. So they could go and ski, but they would ski. So for instance, when Portland and Daring Nordic go ski, Portland skis and Daring skis. They don't ski as the Portland Public Schools, and we're really working on that to try to get that together, because sometimes that hinders us because we don't have enough skiers, or they don't have enough skiers to compete. So the co-op piece is really through the MPA in different aspects. So we could look at it across the board at any sport, but then we would need MPA approval.
And once you apply and the MPA, kind of blesses it and says, go ahead, are you stuck into that consolidation, or do you have to reapply every year?
So it's a 2-year process. Yeah. You have to reapply every 2 years. We just reapplied for ice hockey, and we're approved for 2 more years this past fall. And wrestling was just done this past fall as well.
Awesome. Good. So I heard you, Mr. O'Leary, when I right before I was about to mention that the flag football numbers for Portland Youth Football has gone up. I kind of heard you. I saw you right away, kind of like, yeah, I know what this was about to say. Have you ever heard either from students, parents, an interest to bring flag football into our schools as an alternative to the kids that are, or parents that, or kids that are choosing not to go into tackle football?
So we threw the idea around last year. That's why I was shaking my head. Both my boys play flag football as well. Yep. They love it. Neither one of them probably want to play football. They're both hockey players, and they don't like the idea of being hit. I don't know. But it's
a barrier.
Yeah, that's a barrier. But the idea was thrown around. Actually, why I was shaking my head was we talked about it last year when we were looking at the MOUs. We talked about trying to do something at the middle school level to try to teach the game outside of the flag football season that Portland Youth runs, which is great. We have them on Friday nights playing halftime and stuff. The kids love it. But we thought about maybe doing something in the spring that would lead us into the fall season, even with just the 8th graders, just trying to teach the game, because the society we live in, a lot of the kids don't understand the game right now. They just think it's like my boys. They think you're going to grab a football and be hit. That's not necessarily the truth. There's a lot of technique and a lot of positional play that really needs to be learned. And I think that if we were able to find the funding to do something like that at the 8th grade level, it might produce, 10, 15, 20 more football players the following year in the 9th grade. That's why I was shaking my head, because we talked about it last year with the 3 middle school ADs and Ms. Crocker at a co-curricular meeting. We meet once a month, and we discuss ideas just like that.
Nice, awesome, good to know that. So I'm assuming the same challenges come up with the other sports that we don't have in the middle schools, and that the private organizations, or I guess the nonprofits, are running, like baseball, soccer, basketball, and youth and football, right? Those are the main ones that we've kind of handled off.
Baseball came to us right around the time that we were talking MOUs. Babe Ruth had come in. I mean, obviously, it's no secret that across the country, lacrosse is becoming a bigger sport, and they're taking the numbers from baseball. So Babe Ruth had come to us and, kind of asked an informational question on how we could help them, and it's kind of spurred some of the discussion. We played the City Cup yesterday, as you heard. That is it's actually a Portland Middle School fundraiser. That they run, I think it's 3 or 4 middle school hockey games, and then girls varsity and boys varsity team played last evening, and the place was packed. I mean, but that's an outside organization. The Portland Middle School Ice Hockey Program is not run through our middle schools, but it's something that does prepare the kids to play ice hockey at the high schools. Last evening, before the girls game first, they asked the kids to step out, whoever played for Cheverus and for Portland Daring, and I would say every girl but maybe one stepped forward from Portland Daring, and there was probably 6 or 7 from Cheverus. And then at the boys game, every single boy from Portland and Daring had stepped forward. It was pretty unique to see that there's a program that's working. But I'm sure they have their barriers too, with ice time and money and things like that. But it's definitely something that, those other organizations are struggling with, but they're making it work, at least in ice hockey that I saw last night.
Just wanted to piggyback real quick. We go with competing resources, we go back to student voice. Everybody kind of has their sport they're passionate about. I'm a diamond girl, I'm a softball player, Rob's a hockey player. One of the things we're not talking about, we are seeing numbers go down in certain sports, and if you're a football player, that's alarming to you. Anytime numbers go down, it's alarming. There's a lot of other sports out there that are not mainstream that we've got to create a better venue for our students. Casco Bay has a tremendous ultimate frisbee. That has got to, we need a bigger arena for them. I'll tell you, now that girls volleyball has been taking on so much energy, boys volleyball is not far behind. They're already knocking on the door, want to know when we're doing, and there's bowling, that was another one. So, I think I can be old school traditionalist, and I tend to see my basketball numbers drop, my football. What excites me about Portland Public Schools is all of those non-traditional that has a lot of energy. So yes, while we're balancing that, keep these numbers up, how are we making sure we're creating these opportunities for these sports and these students as well? Because there's a lot of great stuff out there that we really, the resources aren't there. And so we've got to just balance those resources, but especially ultimate frisbee.
So thank you guys. I just want to finish up thanking you again for all the work that you did bringing this up, all the work that you guys do every day. Like Javier said, I know the principals. I follow you guys on Twitter. I'm on Twitter too, I follow you. And you guys really do an amazing job. Sometimes I'm gun shy because I'm like, I don't want to seem like I'm always like in the daring ones and not like Portland. But I really do appreciate how much you guys do to put your students out there and showcase them, because I know how difficult it is for them to participate in sports, but how valuable it is. So again, just thank you for everything you guys are doing. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Well, you've answered extensive questions this evening, so I just want to say thank you for being with us tonight. This is great information. I can't remember the last time we've gotten an athletics update at the board level, so hopefully we've been able to give you some things to think about as well, and we appreciate you being here tonight. Okay. That brings us to public comment. It is before the hour of 10 o'clock. And is there any public comment on items not on this evening's agenda? Seeing none, I will close public comment and call for a motion for adjournment. Ms. Vendel, seconded by Ms. Seeliger. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, it is unanimous with the students in the affirmative, and we're adjourned.